Good morning, entrepreneurs. So, you see in the title, Why Are You Afraid? So, most of you have been asked the question, Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And for those of you who haven't been asked the question, I'm asking you now, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? For those of you who have been asked the question, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? It's very likely that your 5 year time frame is up, meaning it was 5 years ago or more than 5 years ago when you were asked that question, or it may just be next year that time is up. And what I find is, when we're asked that question, oftentimes it sets something off in us, right? Because we come to the realization that where we are is not where we want to be. And so it's likely that in the early seasons of being asked that question, some things are set in motion, like you begin to move, and then life happens. And you actually, maybe you've moved up a little in the process of how you want your life to be and what you want to be doing in your business. For many of you, is transitioning from a role that you currently play in your business to becoming more of a visionary, to move into a space where you you're delegating more things out, or you have multiple streams of revenue, you have money, that comes to you while you're sleeping, as opposed to you trading your time for dollars. Like, in order for you to make the money, you got to go somewhere and be somewhere for a certain amount of time in order for it to happen. Many of you desire for that space and time to be non-existent in your life, or to be very, very minimal. And so you may have done some things that would essentially move you into that direction of visionary, but life happened. And when life happened, you just kind of went back to what you normally do. And I get it, right? Because one of the things I had decided was, by the time I was 40, I would no longer have to trade my time for dollars. And I did that. But during that process, because I'd said that way before turning 40, there were many times where something would happen and I would kind of just revert back to doing it how I had always done it, for a few reasons, which are some of the reasons why you had this vision, this place that you wanted to see yourself in the next 5 years, but life happened and you just kind of went back to what you had been doing before. Good morning. Say hello in the comments. You went back to what you were doing before for a few reasons. Number one, it works, right? It works. The money comes in. Maybe not like you wanted to come in, but it comes in. Number two reason you went back to what you were doing before is because it felt safe, or it feels safe, right? But it's not what you truly desire. It's not what you truly desire. Another reason, you're comfortable. You're comfortable, but you're not inspired. Guys, when I was transitioning from my previous career to what I do now, and for those of you, if you're new to the broadcast, I'm a certified life and business coach, and I work from the comfort of my home. So I have multiple streams of revenue. I create money with ease. I get money in my sleep. Those were things that I desired. I felt like I had put my time in my other career, and the way that I was doing things, where I just wanted things to be different. I wanted more time freedom. I wanted another ceiling of my money to be broken off, where I wasn't limited to only the money that I could make by trading my time for dollars. So, this transitional time that you're wanting, I know it also well. And I remember when things would happen that may have felt a little uncomfortable, or that, would make me a little afraid, I would just go back to doing what I did before, again, because it was working. Wasn't working to the measure that I wanted it to. It felt safe, and I was comfortable. But what I noticed each and every time I went back to doing that thing I was wanting to transition out of, I started resenting it. Like, I started not, excuse me, enjoying the thing that I once loved. And it wasn't because the thing was horrible, right? Because there were still many people who were flourishing and seemingly enjoying the same stage in their business that I was in, but I had truly evolved out of it. And every single time I went back to making that the thing, the way I did the thing in my business, I just started resenting it. I dreaded going to work. There was no, I mean, I could do it with ease because it was something I had done so long, right? So it wasn't like it was difficult, but I started resenting it. Every time life happened and I kind of got off of the trajectory of moving forward and I went back to the other thing, I began to resent it. And so I wanted to ask you this morning, what is it that you're afraid of? Where are the fears about you transitioning to this new way of being and doing as it relates to your business? Um, I find that sometimes the fear is is fear itself, afraid that it won't work, right? Afraid of what people will think if it fails. And the thing about failure, and this is where we have to be so careful, because there are instances of things not working is inevitable in no matter what role we're playing in our business. There are going to be things that come up or things that you attempt to do or that you try that don't work. But that doesn't make you a failure. And here's the thing. Staying will not allow you to experience the level of fulfillment that you truly desire. It's it's not going to be there. When you've gotten to a space where um, what you're doing is just no longer serving who you are now, because you've evolved, right? From that person that you were 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, right? Staying there isn't going to allow you to experience the fulfillment you desire. And listen, no matter how many, so I say, well, let me go take another class, so that I could get motivated in this particular area. And many people will do that. They'll go get another certificate. They'll go get another letter behind their name. They'll go back to school, and I'm all for education. But oftentimes what that is simply, and it feels like, it's so tricky because it feels like you're moving towards the thing that you really desire, but it's kind of like an expensive procrastination where, I'm going to register for another college certificate, or I'm going to learn a new skill set under the same terms of what I was doing before. And it's like, then you may have a good run for 6 months before you start feeling that draining feeling again. And then, so you move forward in it, you steady in it, and then it turns to 3 months. It starts being like every 3 months you start having this feeling as if I really need to be doing something else. I have set out this vision. I said where I wanted to see myself in the next 5 years. But every time life happens, I just go back to the thing, right? I even had in my mind that if I just worked harder, right? If I just worked harder, it would get me there. It was a trap. It was a trap because the same things were occurring. Ultimately, I was still on the same level. I was still exerting the same amount of effort, energy, if not more, into something that I had evolved out of. Um, One of the things I would suggest to you on this morning is to go back to your vision. Go back to your vision. What is the thing that you said you wanted to be doing? because most of you are on that 5-year trajectory. Like you've either passed what you said you wanted to be doing 5 years from now, 5 years ago when you said it, or it's right here. This is the time that you said you wanted to do it, and I get it, right? I understand how we go back to safety. We even do that in relationships that are no longer serving us, right? If even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's not serving us to our highest good, even though um, we don't feel loved or empowered in that relationship, because we've been doing it for so long, there is a tendency to go back to the thing that's not serving you because life got a little uncomfortable or something came up where you felt a little uncertain. Maybe you got a flat tire, right? Maybe you had car trouble. Maybe there was an emergency in the home. You needed a new roof on your home, or um, maybe something happened that said, hey, you know what? Let me run back to what's comfortable. Can I share something with you? I want to share something really powerful. And when this mindset shift occurs for you, I'm hoping that it will help you, regardless of what role you're playing in your business, regardless of what level you find yourself at. Life is going to happen. There are going to be emergencies or at the next level. There's possibility of flat tires at the next level. Even if you've upgraded the car and it's a luxury car, it doesn't denote that there won't be an emergency, right? Your children are going to need something unexpected is going to come up even at the next level. But the thing about it coming up at the next level is you're probably more equipped to handle it. So whenever life kind of flips on you or something doesn't go the way that you want it to go while you're on your vision, reverting back to doing what you used to do it's not going to change things. It becomes a trap. I'm sharing this from my own personal experience. So I was in an industry for over 20 plus years, and I knew, like, I started feeling drained. I started resenting the way that I was earning money, the way that I was doing business. And I had this vision. But when life would kind of flip on me, I would just kind of run back to what was safe. What I had to realize was the short-term sacrifices that I needed to make would bless me for long term. And most people get to the place where it's time to make that short-term sacrifice and they run back to what was comfortable, but wasn't really comfortable, if that makes sense. So here's some things. I want to talk about what I did in those moments and in those times to be able to transition to a new space in my life and my business. The number one thing I realized I needed to do, I needed to be around people who inspired me. Because everybody that I talked to were in the same boat. We were all, many of us, many of my colleagues were saying the same thing. We wanted to do it differently. We wanted to transition. We wanted to be able to create new multiple revenue streams and have money come to us with more ease. We were all saying the same thing. And the thing about that is no one was really inspired and actually moving on the thing. So I knew I needed to be around people who were inspired about their next. For me, that was finding a community. I hired coaches who were further along than I was, who had done the thing that I wanted to do. I knew I needed to be around people who were not just talking about it, not just complaining about it and still doing it. I needed to be in a community around people who were inspired to do it differently, right? So I hired coaches. I connected consistently with people who either had already done it or who were inspired enough to actually be doing it. I hope this is making sense. I'm sharing with you all what I did, because it becomes this trap and you almost begin resenting that thing that you're doing. Number two, I knew I needed to feel. I want you guys to hear me when I say feel. I knew I needed to feel abundant, because every time I went back and started just going harder on the thing I no longer wanted to do, I was operating from a space of lack, right? I was focusing on all the things I lacked that were convincing me that I couldn't move into the thing that I desired, that I couldn't move into my vision. So I knew I needed to begin feeling abundant, and I had to stop focusing on lack. Um, I shifted to a state of desire and abundance, right? And this is important here, right? Because you only act from what you're feeling and what you believe. All of the actions that you take and you don't take will be generated from how you feel and what you believe. If you don't believe that it's possible, you will not take the action for next. Listen, all of what you're doing is based on how you feel. So I knew, the importance of, one, being connected to people who were inspired for next, but even making sure, like checking my own thoughts and how I was feeling and what I was believing. And my answers were coming in my actions. So I would just say, okay, you're taking these actions because what? You're going back to that because what? And so there was a sense of lack that I was focusing on that kept me running back to what I no longer wanted to do. I didn't want to do it, that way anymore. So I had to believe that it's possible. People only do what they believe. You do not get in life what you want. Hear me, guys. You get what you believe. And your actions are going to be generated on what you believe. If you don't believe in the possibility of the thing, if you don't believe in yourself, if you're not giving yourself permission and betting on yourself, you will not take action on where you wanted to see yourself in the next 5 years. Hope this is making sense. I hope this is making sense. Guys, share this out for me. If you do not believe in what it is that you say you desire, you're not going to take action on it. And when I was ready to transition to something different, I had to check my belief. I had to check how I was feeling, because it would always make me run back to the other thing, right? It was kind of like I kept putting the vision off. I kept putting it off. And after a while, I began to resent something that I used to love. I resented going to work. I resented, I was getting clients back to back to back, and I was almost resenting when I would see, people making appointments and things of that nature, because I had evolved internally. Who I was on the inside had evolved out of a space that I hadn't evolved out of physically, right? So one of the reasons why I'm saying your belief is so important is because your belief will transcend fear. So the measure that you believe that it's possible, that thing that you desire, that goal that you desire, where you said you wanted to see yourself in the next 5 years, your belief is going to cause you to take action that's going to overcome the fears that you have. This is why I say belief has to be so important. This is another thing I had to do. I had to stop living as a victim. This is huge, guys. And begin to live as a creator, where I could co-create with God. Because every time life flipped on me and I ran back to doing it the way I was doing it before, I was living as a victim. I was a victim to external things that were happening. This is the reason I haven't moved ahead. I had another emergency to come up. My car needed servicing. I'm just going to go back to this thing. I was a victim to life circumstances that are going to happen at every single level. The difference is, once you've reached a new level, the way that you handle the things that happens, the way life flips on us, is going to be with greater ease because you've accessed a new level. I hope this is making sense, because a lot of times people won't move because they had an emergency or something came up. And listen, I am a component for rest. I am a component for doing your inner work, right? It's super important. If you find yourself in a stage where inner work is what you need to do the most in this season, you need to really work on how you value yourself and your belief. Join me in the Queen Behavior Master Life session. But even still, if you are ready for your next level, your belief is going to transcend your fear. You have to stop living as a victim and become a creator, knowing that you can create what you're going to need at that next level while you're on that next level. So when we think about life, if you live long enough, this is what my pastor say, if you live long enough, life is pretty predictable. It's pretty predictable. Your results and outcomes can be predicted when you live in your past. When you live in the things that you remember, okay, when this happens, I'm in lack or I'm frustrated, or you're living in past results, right? And that makes life pretty predictable because you can dictate just from how it was before when it happened and you kind of went back to what was comfortable. You can kind of predict that it's going to still be that same thing, just a continuous cycle of that. I want you to check your expectations on this morning. Check your expectations. Are you expecting it not to work? That's a huge question to ask yourself. Are you expecting it not to work? Because that will cause you to go back to the thing that you said you no longer wanted to do anymore. Because you're expecting this new realm, this new space in your vision, this new trajectory in your vision not to work. So you just go back. So you see the same people. Hear me, guys. You go to the same places. You do the same things at the same time. Life is pretty predictable when we live it that way. And it's so crazy because we can have this desire or this want for something different. But if we think about it, we see the same people, we go to the same places, we do the same things at the same time. So what can we predict about that? We can predict the same results, the same results. Your personal reality is going to remain the same. Listen, every time I went back to doing that thing I just didn't want to do anymore, my results were the same. They were the same, pretty predictable. So you have to become greater than your reality. You have to become greater than your reality. For most of you, your emotional past, which is fear, past failures, all of the things, is predicting your future. It's predicting your future. Now, this one's heavy right here. So I want to share with you what state you're actually living in. You're living in a state of I will and not I am. Because when you live in a state of I will, that's future tense. That's future tense. But I am is now. I am is about who you are being now. Daily, you have to check what you believe and you have to check your faith. And one of the ways you can determine your faith is by the actions you're taking. That's one true measurement for faith. Where your faith is your action. Is it that you don't think you're worthy or capable or valuable enough to operate at that next level? Do you not believe that you can create at that next level? Again, I say, we go get certifications, or I'm going back to college, and I'm all for education. But if you're taking the same person with the same mindset, with the same fears, with the same I will into that new certificate, into that new degree, the results will be the same. Because you have to become the person that can create on that next level. You have to become the person that can live in the vision that you have. Not just say it, 5 years has gone by since you last heard, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And you started working on that thing, and then life happened, and then you just kind of went back naturally, right? But this is when you got to move into more of a supernatural realm of not doing what's natural and just reverting back to what was comfortable, although it's not comfortable. You just kind of went back to that thing. But I'm telling you, it's about who you're being. So even if you go get that certificate or that degree, and you're still being the person who wouldn't move forward in your vision, if you're still being that person, if life happens and you chunking under the table every single time, that's who you're being. You're going to be that same way with that certificate and with that degree. Does that make sense? I know people with master's degrees who've gone back to school for this or another certification, but they are still being the same person that they were before they got the certificate, before they got the degree, before they took that new thing that they took. It's about being. And I was on the phone with a guy friend of mine, and we were talking about life, and I was sharing with him that I saw a training that was talking about time, and they gave like this trajectory. Now, everybody's life is going to be different. This is no rule of thumb, but I thought it was good, and they talked about like from 0 to 21 are the years that we should be learning, thinking about maybe if children are going to college or taking up a trade or whatever the case may be, going to get their master's, say 21, 25. Years for learning. From 21 to 40 would be years for earning, right? For those of you who, want to start families and things like that, during that time frame. Now, this is no rule of thumb, right? Because everybody has a unique path in life, but it was really a perspective that I thought was profound. Like if this was a template that we kind of set our lives on, it kind of would lead for a sound foundation outside of the unique downloads that God gives you and, pivots and things for you to do it differently. But 21 to 40 was for earning, like really earning well. And it's so lined up. I did a video on what my mentor taught me that was in alignment. When I heard this, I was like, okay, I hear you. And then it said from 40 to, I think, 55 should be a time of like investing. So being able to take what you earn, invest so that it, is creating more income for you, more revenue, so that money is coming in with more ease and more flow. And they stated generally a few of the reasons why this particular stage was set out like it was, because most men at the age of 50, and most won't admit it, right? At the age of 50, they begin to lose their energy. Like they're not in the gym the same way they were before. They're not running the same way they were before, unless they're extra extraordinary and this is something they've just been keeping up with. But our body does change, right? And then for women, they stated that around the 21 to 40 time, most of us who desire to be married and have children, we bear children, we're making sure the children are straight. We may do things within our career, but that 40-year mark, when the kids are about to leave the home and all of those things, women kind of get like a second wind, right? Until that 50, 55. But in that stage, it would be a time for like investing. And I'm sharing that because it the time thing is just in my spirit or my soul in this season, because most of us take time for granted. I'll do it later, right? And most people wait until they have a regret to move. Most people wait until they have a regret, and that regret makes them, you know what, let me get my stuff together. It's on now. But a person who is being is not waiting on regretful moments or emergencies to arise to live into their vision. It is what they are doing consistently because they are in a state of being. I hope this is making sense. Most people, it has to be like an emergency. Like, oh God, let me get myself together, or something comes up. Most of us wait until there is a regret. But what shifts that is when you're in a state of being the vision that you desire, when you are living into that vision. So my thoughts for you, my question for you on today is, what are you afraid of? Are you living in a space of I will or I am? Because I am is when you are being that thing that you said you wanted to do in the next 5 years. It means that when life happens or life flips or things come up, you're still being that thing you said you wanted to be in the next 5 years. And many of you I was going to say missed the mark, but not missed the mark, because we know as kingdom believers, that's sin, right? But many of you have missed that date. It's not too late. But where do you see yourself in the next 5 years was a question you were asked 5 years ago. 5 years ago. So are you in a state of I will or a state of I am? And remember, life flips on us regardless of what stage we're at. But as we move up to new levels, when those occurrences, when those emergencies for the children or you or the home come up, the way you handle it is with more ease, because you've progressed, you've quantum leaped to another level. I hope this is making sense. So for you entrepreneurs, you're wanting to transition, one or two things. Is it how you're valuing yourself? Do you not feel worthy? Value is how you value yourself is huge. And it's this untapped realm that most people don't even realize exists, that's attached to your esteem, how you esteem yourself, your self-esteem. If that's you, join us inside the Queen Behavior Master Life session. It's happening a little over a week from now. You can join us in that. It's powerful. I break down self-esteem. We go over boundaries. You need boundaries in your life. And most people think, when they think boundaries, they're thinking about keeping people out. But boundaries are about establishing things that help you to honor yourself. Is going back to the thing that you don't desire to do anymore. Is that honoring yourself? This is where you would create a boundary that you can live in, so that you can say, okay, when these things occur, I understand that life is going to happen, but I am going to remain connected to what I said I desired for my life and my business. For those of you who are entrepreneurs, you know I'm ready to begin creating another stream of revenue. I want to do this thing with more ease, and I want to learn to live in the state of being, where it's not I will, but I am. Join us inside the Exceptional Mastermind. Well, there is an application process. But if this is where you know you are and you're ready to create more income that you're doing with ease, move into a new state of being where you're living into your vision, I'd love for you to apply. All of the details for the mastermind, the Master Life Session, the Queen Behavior Master Life Session is at the top of this video. I also added the link to my shop, where there are digital courses and downloads and ebooks that you can access immediately for help wherever you find yourself in your journey. There's one that talks about the gaps in your business, finding out the gaps in your business. But for those of you who are wanting to transition, what is it that you're afraid of? Are you living in I will or I am? And you really have to trust the process. You have to trust that you're no longer the victim to how things used to be, but you are a co-creator. You can co-create with God regardless of what level it is that you're on. Hope that makes sense. That's my take. You guys have a good one.